This is, each week we do something called a community moment, where someone from our community gets up and shares a thought for the day. It can be about anything, pretty much. We've covered the whole gamut. And today we're going to invite back up again Jerard Smith. Let's welcome him to the...
I'm going to switch this quickly back to the first slide, just to the last one. Gave the whole thing away there, unfortunately.
We weren't paying attention.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, good morning. Welcome to Houston Oasis. I'm happy to see everybody today. I'm happy to be here myself. Most of you probably know by now that I grew up in Alaska, and I love to talk about growing up in Alaska because lots of stuff, crazy stuff happened while I was there growing up. So today I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm going to keep it on the light side. I'm going to leave the heavy thinking to Vic. I'm going to do more of Joel Olstein.
Amen. You got to twitch up your eyes real tight.
Anyway, one of the great things about growing up in Alaska is all the airplanes. This happens to be a picture of a lake called Lake Hood. That's not my house, by the way. That was I caught this off the internet because all the pictures I had of Lake Hood weren't this good. So I stole this one. It's right next to International Airport there in Anchorage. It's right downtown. It's the largest floatplane base in the world. My dad keeps his Cessna 185 on this lake, and I've flown off of it many, many times. But the story I want to tell today starts back 43 years ago. Unfortunately, that did not do what I wanted to do. So there I am. All right, cute. Just getting started there. Got my first airplane on that day. Right there. I still actually still have that airplane. As it turns out, it's up in my attic. So I got introduced to airplanes very, very early on. Quickly upsized, so my second airplane. Actually, that's one of my dad's airplanes. My mom and dad were teachers, and they taught out in the village, Russian Mission, reference my first talk that I did here. The only way to get there is to fly. There are no roads that go out there in the bush of Alaska, so my dad actually owned several airplanes. That's one of them right there. And so I kind of grew up sitting in the seat of an airplane flying. And so there came a time where I wanted to learn to fly. And so I was faced with where to learn to fly. It turned out in Anchorage, the best instructors, or so people told me, and the cheapest hourly rates were on Elmendorf Air Force Base on a flying club. Slight teeny problem, I wasn't in the Air Force, and neither were my parents. So I couldn't join that club unless I joined the Civil Air Patrol. And if I joined the Civil Air Patrol, I could join the flying club on Elmendorf Air Force Base, and so that's what I did. I had no idea what the Civil Air Patrol did, or stood for, or anything. But I joined them, and there I am in my snazzy Civil Air Patrol flight suit. I don't know that you could be any more nerdy. But I got to fly my little Cessna 172 and 152s off of Elmendorf Air Force Base with the C-5s and the F-15s, which was a fun experience, let me tell you. Coming over, trying to land behind the F-15s makes you feel pretty cool. But the first thing you learn about flying in Alaska, the first thing the instructors teach you is how to survive if you crash. Like I said, there's no roads out there. If you go down in the wilderness, you're basically going to sit there until somebody finds you. And so you have to be prepared to survive. And so you carry survival gear in your airplane, all kinds of stuff to stay alive if you end up out there. But that's only half of the equation. This brings me back to the Civil Air Patrol and what I learned about them. It turns out the Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary group of the United States Air Force, and one of their primary missions is search and rescue. And so while I was learning to fly and learning how to do the things that I needed to do in an airplane to stay alive should I wreck, I was also part of an organization that went out and did search and rescue. And I got to train as part of that organization And there happens to be a picture, it's a little hard to see, there's a wrecked airplane out there. That was 2011, Civil Air Patrol found that airplane, and then the Air National Guard rescued the guys that were on it. But that's one of the things they did. And so what happened, what I learned, whoops, wrong way, is that safety in Alaska was a team effort. There were two sides to it. As the pilot, I had a responsibility, well, to try not to wreck in the first place. But if I did wreck, I was supposed to have on board my airplane the equipment that I needed to keep myself alive for some amount of time out in the wilderness. By the way, that is a picture I did take. So that's me flying up in the Alaskan range. You notice, yeah, there are no roads. So if you wreck out there, yeah, it gets a little interesting. But on the other side of that, the Civil Air Patrol was an organization that would come out and look for you. And so, as a team, between the pilot and the Civil Air Patrol, we can make flying in Alaska safe. The same is true of any community when you talk about Houston Oasis. Together, we each do our thing for society. We try to be good people, we try to help our neighbors, but when we come together and pool our resources, we can do far more than just the sum of our parts. And that's part of the great thing about being part of this wonderful organization. Thank you.